anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy. It's your 1 year anniversary today. And it's April Fool's Day too, April 1. And that's no fooling at all that it's your 1 year anniversary.
That's no joke.
It isn't. It's your 1 year anniversary. Sorry, we just had our Spectrum internet guy here.
Of course.
Because we went from 100 Mbps's. Now, that's all the knowledge that I have. We went from 100 to 200 a few months ago, but we were still having so many problems. Our internet was so slow. So we finally called Zach from Spectrum. And what did we find out, Hud?
Well, a while ago when we had been at 100, I had gotten my studio all set up, my computer, everything like that, and the internet was running a little slow, and files and stuff like that weren't going as well as they should. So I got an Ethernet cord, wired it all the way down to the basement to the router, plugged it in. Well, we had another Spectrum guy come earlier, and he couldn't. He said, well, everything looks fine. Well, this guy came, and by process of elimination, he found out that my Ethernet cord was sucking all of the Mbps's.
All the life out of the rest of us.
From everybody else. So, kind of my fault. So that's what happened. It was, he rung the doorbell right when we were about to start recording. So of course it's like, and now wait. Yeah. So that was fine.
Yeah. Well, we got that figured out, and hopefully things are going to be faster now. And we just absolutely need that. We have to have that as a family. That is a first world problem, no doubt about it.
We cannot have that happen.
So this is the anniversary. What do we got going? This is our first podcast.
Yeah,
what do we have today?
So
what are we going to cover?
We've got a little bit of Todd tips right away, like normal, keep it normal. And then we've got an interview with Bill DeWeese. So we'll talk about that a little bit more when it comes up. It's actually was long enough that we could break it into two parts. So it'll be the first part this week and then the second part next week on our second episode. So that's something to look forward to. And then we'll do our week in review and then take it from there.
See what happens. See who shows up.
Yep.
So
you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So, well, should we get to it?
Let's do it.
All right.
Hey, this is Bill DeWeese, pro voiceover talent and voiceover career coach. And this is the original Father-Son Voiceover Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the original Father-Son Voiceover Podcast. I'm Hudson. That's my dad, Todd. And today's kind of special because it is 1 year anniversary of me starting voiceover. And it's also the first episode of the podcast.
Happy anniversary. And we're starting something new together.
Yeah,
that sounds
exciting.
Fun. And Demond is here.
Yeah, Demond,
running the camera.
Come out
Just
and
step out here, Demond, so people can see you. Give a good wave. There he is.
Yeah.
He's the behind-the-scenes guy. Pretty soon he'll probably be running the place.
Probably.
That's just the way he is.
He'll be giving me tips on voiceover.
And I think we're going to have somebody else stop by from VO Marketing Pro, one of your brothers, your oldest brother.
So John, the oldest, who is obviously one of the people from VOMP, one of our personal assistants, guys who takes care of all things VOMP, is going to come up and tell us your guys' numbers. So that's show you another face. So that's what's going to happen there.
That'll be great.
So what we do to start off is you've got 3 of the 10 mindsets to have for a small business or voiceover. So why don't you give us those things?
You know, we've been doing this for the last few weeks, and we did, I think, mindsets 1 through 4, and Demond has kindly, graciously, wonderfully put those up on YouTube and on our Facebook, so you can check those out. And then we had 5, 6, and 7, and today we're going to finish out 8, 9, and 10 mindsets. The reason that I brought this up, and we won't spend a long time on them. Maybe we'll come back to them in future podcasts. But what I find after being in the business, in the industry for over 12 years, is that a lot of times people will focus on a quiet workspace. That's very important. No doubt about it. I'm not trying to diminish that. Great equipment is important as well. Coaching, training, mentorship, that's critically important. A marketing plan is very important. And then, of course, a good financial plan to do the work, get the invoices out and get paid for the work. That's very important. All those things are great and important things when it comes to building and maintaining a successful VO business. But here's my point, and that's why I brought up these 10 mindsets, and they're not exhaustive. A mindset, a business mindset, is the most critical, foundational aspect of all. That's the foundation on which all of those things rest, the great equipment, coaching, marketing, different things like that. If you don't have a good mindset, then you're in trouble right out of the gate. And so we've been talking about these mindsets. So here's VO mindset number 8, and feel free to jump in if you have questions or comments. Here's the 8th mindset. A simple daily plan outperforms the latest and greatest gadgets and schemes mindset. That's something that I've lived by over the 12 years. Now, I'm not saying, just so you know, I'm not saying that you don't kind of keep your ear to the tracks for new and better ways of doing things. I know as maybe an older person, and this is one of the things that we talk about, I'm going to be 62 in just a few days, and you are 26.
Yes, yep.
And so you have newer and a lot of times better ways of doing things. But you also have to be careful that you're not just flailing. You're not just, this isn't working after 2 or 3 weeks. And I think you know the pull of that. If something isn't working, especially when you're starting out and you're not busy and things aren't coming in like you think they should, isn't it easy to say, well, I'll try something new, or I'll try that, or something new flashes, some new plan or scheme or gadget. If I get that, then I'm going to be a better VO talent.
Yeah, there's just a lot of information out there, and you have to be able to sift through what's realistic for you to do and what's like someone trying to sell you something. And I'm not saying everybody out there is trying to just sell you something, but there's tons and tons and tons of content out there about whatever. And you got to be careful. I do. And I'm fortunate that I have you as a resource, as we've talked about that many times. Just sticking to the plan that you've stuck to for 12 years and just continued to just prove how well that works. And yeah, you're going to have ups and downs, but you just have to keep sticking to that plan.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that works. And you've showed that. Other people have showed that. So
yeah, and the thing is, the voiceover industry has changed drastically in the last 10 to 20 years, and it's going to continue to change. And so you have to be ready to change with it. You don't want to be a dinosaur. You don't want to be stuck in the mud. And that's a temptation, honestly, for people that have been in it a long time. And it's good to have you around. That's what you bring. Hey, Dad, what about this? Or let's try this. And then we can kind of, go back and forth and say, well, let's not get off the beaten path too far here. So there's so many VO artists that run from one thing to another and they want immediate ROI. Here's the point. Don't get off track. If you have a good business plan and it's worked, then just continue to work it. Work a business plan that works. Work a business plan that works. Here's the 9th mindset. Here it is. And I say this kiddingly sometimes. My wife and I talk about this. If I don't do it, it ain't going to get done. If I don't do it, it ain't going to get done. Bottom line, this VO business is yours. And it's not just it is not just a VO business. It's your VO business. It's not just a VO business. It's your VO business. So of course you want it to think of it as a VO business, but you also have to put that, this is my business. And so that doesn't mean you can't get coaching. It certainly doesn't mean that you can't farm out certain things to people. I do that. My invoicing and financials are given to somebody. Almost all of my editing, you do some, Deshaun does some. There's lots of jobs that I marketing. There's lots of jobs. We've started VO Marketing Pro to help people kind of be their assistant so they can leverage their time. But ultimately, It's you. It's your responsibility. I have on my LLC, my business says Todd Barsness, voiceover talent. Yours says Hudson Barsness, voiceover talent.
Correct.
And we help each other, and we want to help you. And that's why we have this podcast. But it's still ultimately your responsibility. And that's critically important, I think, to understand. I think people intellectually understand that, and I think they would say that, but they don't always act that way.
Sure.
So here's the last one. VO mindset number 10. Coaching is great, and everyone needs encouragement. Don't get me wrong. But don't be needy, and don't need your hand held. That's a mindset. Coaching is great. Everyone needs encouragement, but don't be needy and don't need your handheld mindset. Again, don't misunderstand me. Everyone needs help. I've needed so much help in my life in general. When I was an athlete, I needed coaches, I needed trainers. Everyone needs help in the VO industry as well. And again, that's why VO Marketing Pro exists. That's what we want to do with this podcast. We want this to be an encouragement to people. Maybe you aren't a trailblazing type person. Maybe you're not a pioneer. Maybe you're not that kind of a person. Maybe you need a little bit more guidance. Just make sure, here's my point, that you're learning and owning what you learn and putting it into practice and not being lazy or undisciplined. You have to make sure that you're doing the work yourself and not relying on somebody else. Because going back to that last one, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done.
Well, and other people can't afford to run your business for you. You can't afford to run I have to figure it out. In some ways, obviously, you help me a lot. But you can't sit there and hold my hand. Okay, Hudson, you got to send out these emails today. You got to do this editing. You got to do all these things. I have to do that myself, or else my business isn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
So that's obvious.
Yeah, but it's obvious, but I think that's nevertheless, I've had to learn that. You're having to learn that. You have to take that ownership. It's your business. And if you don't do it, it ain't going to get done. So those are just some mindsets. And again, we'll post those individually on our Facebook, YouTube, and on our podcast Facebook and YouTube page, so that hopefully that will be, again, a very kind and gracious, come on, let's go, we can do this, kind of encouragement. That's what I meant it for.
Well, thank you for those things, because I think like you said, for these people, they don't always get that encouragement. And I'm always around it. And so I don't always understand how good I have it. And I've got to remind myself that. So those are good things to remember for people who don't have that. So that's what we want to be, once again, a community for people who don't have the positive reinforcement that I have. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, next we have the number one coach voted by Voices.com. So stick around, and that interview will be next. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the original Father-Son Voiceover podcast. I'm Hudson, and this is my dad, Todd. And we'd like to just take a moment before we get back to the podcast to talk about our sponsor and friend, Bill DeWeese. Dad, do you mind taking a moment just to talk about what Bill has meant to your business, my business, and kind of the voiceover world?
Not at all, and I could talk for a long time about Bill, but just let me tell you that he is a voiceover talent. He's been a voiceover talent for over 15 years. He's a VO coach, done that for over a decade, and he just recently was voted the number one trusted voiceover coach from Voices.com, and so that's quite an honor. I started following Bill 11 years ago, and so many important business principles I found in his teaching, in his YouTube channel. And so to me, he's helped me build a multiple six-figure business and, set the stage for me to have the opportunity to help you in your business. So that's a little bit about Bill from my perspective.
Yeah, and one way that we think that Bill's services can help you out is if you're somebody like me. If you're new to voiceover, you don't have what I have at home, which is my dad, someone who's gone through 12 years of VO experience, built a big business. And so if you're somebody like that and you need that positive reinforcement, I understand that, because I sometimes need that. And I even have a great resource right here. But if you don't have that, going to Bill DeWeese Media, looking at his coaching, his voiceover blueprint, He's the type of guy you want to have on your team, a friend, a coach, stuff like that. So if those things interest you and you think you need some help, we'll drop some links below to his blueprint, his website, and his coaching, so that you can use his services.
Yeah, and we'll have a referral link there so that Bill knows where you're coming from. You're coming from the Father-Son podcast.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So without further ado, we'll get you right back to the original Father-Son Voiceover podcast. Hey, welcome back, and we're so glad that you're with us once again. This week, my dad and I had the pleasure of interviewing the #1 trusted voiceover coach for 2022, voted by Voices.com. Obviously, maybe some of you know who that is. His name is Bill DeWeese. So what we'll do is we will play that interview, the first part, and then you guys can give us some feedback on what you think about that and stuff like that. So here's our interview with Bill. Always tease that he's real close and stuff like that. So
Are you saying this head's too big for his body, or
he's just got a big head. He's got a large noggin, and I've got a big nose. I always joke about that. So my nose is always in other people's business.
do you remember the movie Michael Myers, So I Married an Axe Murderer? And he does his character's eye, his Scottish character, and he's talking about the size of the noggin on the guy.
I haven't seen that.
It's like a 25-year-old movie. It's called So I Married an Axe Murderer. It's a comedy with Michael Myers, and it's hilarious. The way he goes off on this kid about the size of his head. Look at the size of the noggin on that boy. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Well, my oldest son, John, your assistant, had hydrocephalus when he was young and had brain surgery. And so I said to the neurosurgeon early on, I said, I've always had a large head. My mother had kind of a large head. So we just figured it was running in the family. And he said, well, you might have had hydrocephalus. Your body just adjusted eventually, but Jonathan's didn't. He had to have surgery.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he had surgery, 18 months. And then again, when he was 17 years old. So.
Oh, no kidding. So the waited that long, and I'm sure because the progress and the body kind of matures and grows at a certain rate at different times.
Well, he had a shunt put in to relieve the fluid, and then they had what's called a third ventriculostomy, which is a cutting of a small thing in your brain that allows the ventricles. You have 4 ventricles in your brain, and that allows those to communicate with one another. And then the fluid doesn't collect, and it goes down your spinal cord. So he had that when he was 17. He was a candidate for that, and it worked. So we're very grateful.
Oh, well, thank goodness for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have, hopefully we don't have to take 40 minutes, but we've got a captive audience, so we're going to steal as much time as we can from you and try not to.
Well, if after 5 minutes you think, oh, this guy's boring, he really has not lived a life, feel free, you won't hurt my feelings at all.
Yeah. Well, so I think what we're going to do, we'll get into this quickly because, well, I won't say, we've talked about some of the things we're going to talk about, but we want to save as much time as possible. And we're going to, when we get into our studio to do our podcast, we're going to kind of introduce things whatever way we need to do that. So we don't have to feel like we've got to kind of do a great introduction here. We'll get to all of the stuff that we want to talk about. So you good with that?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll just follow your lead.
Okay, and I think I'm recording. I sure hope.
Yeah, it said recording is in process. So we should be good.
Okay. So I guess I wanted to start out just a little bit talking about the fact that, and we won't go over this a whole lot, Bill, because in all of the interviews that we've done, I've talked about this. So just a brief reminder for people. I've known you for over 11 years now, and I stumbled onto your YouTube channel very early on in my voiceover career. And
we were both just kids, as I recall.
Yeah, exactly. And you were, I think, fairly early in your YouTube. You had been doing voiceover for a few years, but you were starting that. And
Yeah.
I'm not patronizing you. We talk about this all the time. I'm so thankful that I found you, because like I've said, out of all the voices out there, you made the most sense to me. And so I gobbled that YouTube stuff up because I didn't know what else to do. I'd been in radio for 30 years. The people were brought to you, to the station, the audience. And then all of a sudden I'm doing voiceover and I don't know who am I supposed to sell myself to? And so I applied that and worked it, the principles that you had. And it took me about 5 years to really lay some things down and get the ball going. But after 5 years, I made over $100,000. And then the next year, and for the next 3 years, it was over 200,000. And the last 2 years, it's been over $300,000. And that's in great part to your mentorship. And I can't say thank you enough. So I really appreciate that. I really do.
Means a lot coming from you, Todd. Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, money isn't the most important thing. We know that that's not the most important thing, but what it has allowed, this greater income, far, far greater than I could have ever imagined working in, Christian radio for all those years, was that it's allowed myself and our family to be more generous to people. We've been able to hire people who maybe were having a little tough luck at that point. And so that was wonderful. We've been able to save more money. And with my 6 boys, Becky and I, we have 6 adult sons, and we've been able to start VO Marketing Pro. We've been able to help Hudson launch his voiceover career. And now we're able to do this original father-son podcast, which you're a part of. So again, I know I've had to do work, but again, the principles were very, very important and still are. I still use the same basic principles every single day that I've learned from you.
No, well, and thanks, Todd. And you're one of the very first people who actually sent me, it was a postcard or a letter, but over the years, you've sent me multiple things. I don't remember what the first thing was. It said, hey, I'm using this training and it's actually working. And I kept that and I put it up in my office because, it's just good to be reminded every now and again. You want to be affirmed that what sorry, my daughter was trying to call me there. I don't know if that came through or not.
It did, but we can cut that out.
Okay, my apologies.
No problem.
Let me tell her I'm on. I should have told her before.
It's all right. That happens.
Yeah, we're not.
I'll just turn that off there. There we go.
I just was going to start dancing to it. Honestly, it was kind of a.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did not let her know what was going on. So yeah, I took that card or letter, whatever it was. I remember putting it up in my office just and as a matter of fact, I did that after I think everything you ever sent me. I would put it up. Just as a reminder, because it's good to know that sometimes you wonder, is this helping anybody? And I occasionally get the email, and that kind of thing. But when somebody takes the time to actually write a letter, a handwritten letter or card, that means a lot. So, so thanks. That was an encouragement to me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't hard to connect the dots of my success with what I had, the principles that I had learned from you. So that was very heartfelt, and it just made sense. And so I guess, talking about the original father-son voiceover podcast, it just made sense to have you be our first guest. We've asked you to be our podcast voice. And so having you be here the first time, yeah, it's a lot of pressure. Everything is dependent on you, Bill, to make this success.
The inaugural broadcast.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're good to go. But let's talk just a couple of minutes. We want to go off the beaten path because I've watched you in so many interviews, and most of it is, how did you get involved in voiceover? What do you do, this and that? And that's good stuff, but they can find that elsewhere. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about your background, maybe growing up, and then get into a couple of things that maybe we'll have to tiptoe around, or maybe you'll just charge right into it. We'll let you lead in answering the questions.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. And so I guess one of the questions I had for you, just very basic, DeWees, what ethnicity is that?
It apparently is Dutch, which I didn't know until I was in my 30s, believe it or not. My dad always said he thought we were part German and part French, or I don't even remember what the European combination was. But when I was 31, we moved to the Chicagoland area when I was managing a station. I was on air. I was doing mornings there. And I remember I started getting phone calls from people in the New Holland
Yeah.
area. And I had no idea. Apparently, there's like a secret club
Mhm.
among the Dutch, and that if you are Dutch, you are accepted kind of as one of their own. And and I remember one of the first things I was introduced to was the term "you ain't much if you ain't Dutch." I
Yep.
remember somebody telling me that. And these people from New Holland were always calling up, "Oh, DeWees, it's good to have a DeWees." I had no idea, and I couldn't, I couldn't break their hearts and tell them I didn't realize I was Dutch. But apparently, it was a big thing to them. So I just kind of basked in that love for a while. It was nice. So I'm Dutch.
Yeah. And I went to school in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is a very Dutch area. At least it
Oh,
used to
okay.
be.
Yeah, yeah.
Huge area. In fact, when we first moved there, most of the stores weren't open on Sunday because it was such a Christian reformed Dutch area. And
Right.
that was the same thing. If you ain't Dutch, you ain't much, they said. But here's something interesting. You said from South Holland, Illinois. That's interesting. I never heard that before. Because here's why that's interesting. When I was working at the radio station in Michigan, the World Home Bible League contacted me and asked me to do a voiceover in the mid 60s. And it was from the World Home Bible League in South Holland, Illinois, which is, I think, what you're referring to, the Dutch
Yes.
enclave there.
Who was the head of that organization? Do you remember?
I don't remember. All I know is I drove across town, came back in 1 hour and made $60. And for a person in the early 80s that
And
was
you were
making
thrilled.
I mean, it was like $350
you.
now, I mean, it was
Yeah.
just like,
Oh,
I'll take that. I could do this all the time, but there was no technology. So I
yeah.
was stuck doing radio, for the next almost
Right.
30 years. So that's interesting. There's a connection there with South Holland and that's
Yeah.
a Dutch kind of a Dutch enclave, or at least it used to be.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. As far as I know, but I could not believe the reception I gained. I never had a community embrace me as much as I had New Holland.
That's very interesting, even though you didn't know you were
Who
Dutch.
knew? I didn't even know I was Dutch.
So you grew up in that area, or you grew up, where did you grow up?
Ohio. I grew up near
Okay.
Columbus, a little town
Okay.
called Lancaster, Ohio.
Okay, in the 60s and 70s. Was that, that was a turbulent time in the United States. I mean, I grew up near Madison, Wisconsin, where I live now, and they had lots
Yeah.
of protests and stuff. And then how far is Kent State, where the students were shot and killed during the
It's several
anti-war?
hours from where I lived.
It is. Okay.
So, I mean,
were you
I was
affected?
very aware.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was very aware of it. I was very young. I was born in '59, so around that time, you get in the late '60s. I'm around 10, 11 years old. So I had a vague awareness of what was going on. But my life was as it is. But I think a lot of kids just consumed by music, and my friends and sports and the stuff that we were doing. Watching Cincinnati Reds play
Mhm.
baseball and listening to the Beatles and the whatever. There was so many things. We just get together and listen to records and watch baseball. I mean, that was like our biggest. That was it.
Yeah. And that seemed to be like just 30 minutes away from our home. There were people getting their heads smashed in, and they were bombing things and stuff like that at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. And we lived out in the sticks, and there was not a real connection, because I was 9 or 10. I'm about a year younger than you are. But the world was going through, there was the hippie, and we were kind of on the tail end of that whole movement and things like that. So I didn't know if that.
I look back on, so I've looked at history and I'll hear things referenced. Sometimes it amazed me to realize I was so far removed that it really didn't have a big impact on my life. Again, a vague awareness, but Lancaster, Ohio is a fairly small town. So we weren't in Columbus. We were kind of our own thing, and it just kind of flew past me without really having much of an impact.
Were you involved in like musicals at school, plays? Did you get into the theater side of things, or you were just into music?
No, not at all, which is interesting because all three of my kids have been, they did theater and music and, excelled in that. I just wanted to be a guitar player. I mean, I just wanted to play rock and roll. That's all. Then when I was in 5th grade, I started playing, I picked up the viola, which is a little bit larger than a violin. So from 5th grade through 9th grade, I took lessons and learned, played in the school orchestra and did all of that. But I loved rock and roll. And so finally, a friend of mine, when I was 16 years old, he taught me how to play 3 chords, G, C, and D. And so picked up a guitar, started playing. And when I got to college, it was like surgically attached to my hand. That's all I did is I just played and played, got in a band. And I remember in college, I played with a bunch of guys who they were very good. And it was a Christian university, and it was a Christian music band. And they got signed to a record deal by a label called Brentwood Records in Nashville, which later became Essential Records, Jars of Clay, and a bunch of other groups. I think Third Day. So with that label in time, this was pre that. This was like at the very birth of that label. But I wanted to be in radio, so I didn't pursue it, which is interesting because within a year they had broken up and they did their tour, and I was still playing weekends for like the next 20 years. So.
That's
It all worked out.
Hudson, any questions that you have? Anything that comes to mind?
No, not really. Just when did you, were you always, decent at singing? Because Dad, you showed me that video or whatever you did about, what was the song called?
It was Daisy J in America.
Yeah. Sister and Daisy J. Yeah. For some reason, I only covered America. I don't know why that is. That's the stuff I listened to was, I listened to Foreigner and Styx and more guitar-driven bands. But, I don't know if that had any awareness of how good or not good I was or wasn't at that point in time. I just knew I liked to do it, and then when I got into college, I got asked to play and sing a lot. So I realized I must be able to do something. Okay. I started doing coffee houses, and I started traveling around with groups and so yeah, at that point, it just kind of became a thing. And up until we moved to Illinois, I was out with a group of guys. We were out every weekend, someplace in Ohio or Kentucky or West Virginia or someplace. And then once I moved to Illinois, I was still involved in my church stuff, but I didn't do any traveling around.
So you did that. So now you don't. So when did you move to Illinois?
We moved to Illinois in 91, and
Okay.
we were there for 30 years. And then a year ago, we moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where my wife grew up. And so we've been here for a year, but I've reconnected with the band, my friends from Columbus, and we're actually getting back together.
The band is getting back together.
Yeah.
Yeah, the band, it's like a bunch of old guys trying to relive their glory days, I guess. I don't know but we just decided, because we were just like really close, just good friends. And they're such, they're accomplished musicians, and they're so good, and it's so much fun to play with them. And so, we're trying to get a set list together now. So we'll see if anybody actually wants to hear us or not.
Yeah, that was going to be
gosh,
my
that's
next
funny.
question.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question, is if you were going to be doing that again, or if you had done it ever since then, or maybe you had taken a 30-year, hiatus.
I hadn't picked up my guitar hardly at all in the past 15 years. I mean, I just didn't play. I just didn't play. Didn't have a reason to, and and as time goes by, it just becomes less important. But then all of a sudden you get with these guys, and it's like, oh my gosh, then you start talking about the stuff you've done together, and the things that, man, we should get together. And then before you know it, you're putting together a set list of songs you're going to learn. So we'll see. I kind of laugh as I look at it, because it's kind of amusing. I'm sure my kids must think I'm like the crazy old guy, but it's, the things that you have passions for now, a lot of that you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. And I figure as long as I'm physically able to do it, which I still can, at least at some level, and a lot of my peers are still alive. We haven't all died yet, so hopefully there's a market for that kind of thing. We'll see.
There's that always, whatever movie it is, we're getting the band back together. We're getting the band back together.
Well, you look at music today, and you look at some of the, it's amazing how bands like the Eagles and Aerosmith, and which, the guys those were my heroes when I was in high school. It's weird because they've attracted a whole new generation of fans. And I remember my wife and I went to a Fleetwood Mac concert at the United Center a few years back, and there were these two little girls, like junior high age, right in front of us, who knew every word to every song. It's just, and we go to concerts. We saw Foreigner and Styx not long ago, and a Journey and a bunch of others. And it's just, the crowds are just unlike when I was a kid, it was only kids that would go to these concerts. But now you see everybody, grandmas and grandpas down to these little kids, and they're all loving it.
So real quickly, before we get to those other two topics, you went to Olivet Nazarene. Is that where you went to college?
No, I taught there.
Okay.
Okay.
And they owned the radio station that I managed. The
Okay, got it.
Chicago area station. So
Mhm.
they had, in addition to their campus program and station, they had this as a 35,000 watt FM station. That we had a staff for that. So it was interesting because it's kind of a precursor to the voiceover blueprint. It was I love the model of having a professional operation where you mentor people who are learning, like a university hospital, where they're still doing procedures on real patients by real doctors, but they have students who follow them around and learn and work under their watchful eye. And I loved that model when I was at Olivet. And a lot of those kids, went on to work in broadcast media and in the music industry as well. And it was fun, and I enjoyed it so much that I felt that would be a good model to use in voiceover as well.
Yeah, and that's something that we definitely want to hit on just as we kind of close out our time together, is your blueprint and just what you're doing with that and just all that is entailed, because it's such a great thing, and it's helping a lot of people. So we want to get to that. Let me just ask you, and again, you be the one that wades in as much as you want to or don't want to. But back maybe, I don't know, maybe it's been more than that now, you kind of stirred up some controversy, probably unbeknownst to you. You ran into, quote, a little trouble with the voiceover establishments. Can you explain, just for a little bit of a background, because some people might not be aware of that, and some of us who just follow you and that you just made business sense, we said, what's all the hubbub about? This doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it's just business principles.
I didn't even know there was an establishment. I mean, who knew? But with social media, I guess people can easily, create their own camps of how they operate and how they function, so they can throw rocks at each other. And, what fun is life if you can't create your own camp to throw rocks at other people? So I found out as time went by, as I began, promoting the training and getting on YouTube and explaining how I do what I do. Apparently, and I knew it was different from what the popular pervading wisdom was, but what I didn't expect was that it would have evoke a hostile reaction among people. And as I look back on it now, I can see why that happened. And as you said, Todd, I come from more of a business background. I mean, radio really helped build a foundation for me from a marketing standpoint. And you know what that's like when you're dealing with stations. And I don't know the stations you worked for, but I was operating with, very little marketing budget. So I had to learn to become very resourceful. And I learned a lot about marketing, and I felt like I was pretty good at it. And then worked for a business consulting firm after I left academia in Chicago. And so was able to work and help businesses in that way. So to me, those are the things that make sense. On a larger scale, you see how technology changes business. And I remember, I was teaching in an MBA program in marketing, and I remember giving case studies, talking about how it's changed the way, whether you're a manufacturing organization, it doesn't matter really what type of company it is, it changes the way you do business. And you can't fight technology. That's the big lesson here, is you either adapt or you die, because technology is not going to step back and say, oh, my bad, I'm sorry, I didn't, the people who created, the horse and buggy, it didn't back up from the people who just sold horses for transportation to say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize the buggy was going to cut into your business so much. Or the automobile, industry. Oh, I'm sorry, we weren't trying to kill the horse and buggy business. Or the computers to the typewriters, or Uber and Lyft to the taxi. You could go on and on. Technology always wins. So you got to figure out how to operate within that. So to me, that, not only made good business sense, it just made sense. Why commit business suicide if you don't have to? So I started talking, and I tried to do here. This is important to understand. When I first got in voiceover, I hired a couple of coaches, good people, and they were good performance coaches, but I followed their advice. Their business advice was very simple: get your demo, get an agent, and audition. Then you audition, and if you don't get work, you get more training. You audition. If you don't get work, you get more training. And so I was doing this, and it was just hard. Well, you guys know, it's just hard to get work that way. Not that you can't get work that way, not that I haven't gotten work that way, but to build a sustainable business, it's next to impossible there are a few people who do it. Most of them are in LA, where that's kind of the culture of the business,
Right.
where most people work through their agents. But if you're in Wisconsin or Ohio or Illinois, even in the Chicago market, unless you're in the city, it just doesn't make good business sense. So, anyhow, I decided one day a light came on and said, why don't you just do what you taught other people to do and what you used to do, when you're in business? And I thought, oh, okay. So I just went directly to I just started using marketing strategies to get in front of the right people. And son of a gun, if I didn't start getting work, it's amazing how quickly my business grew after I did that. Now, the pushback comes from the fact that when you circumvent the system, whether it's real or perceived, and a lot of this is just a perceived system. It doesn't have to be done that way, but it is done that way. You start to become a threat, again, whether real or perceived, to other people, because if I'm making my own rates, and let's say, Hudson, you've had a client for 30 years, and when you go out and do work, you never get paid less than such and such. Well, now all of a sudden there's 100,000 people coming into this business because technology allows them to, and they can communicate directly with clients. Well, now all of a sudden you've got to do some thinking as a business person. How do I deal with this? Well, you don't want to do anything. You just want to keep getting paid what you've been paid, doing the work you've been doing. But they think that if I'm charging, say, 75% of what you're charging, well, I'm stealing your work. We could have a whole conversation around that. Well, am I really? Well, yeah, sure. I mean, there's an appeal there because you can get it for less, but just because I'm cheaper doesn't mean I'm the right fit for the job. And we could have a big conversation around that. But the point is, the feeling is kind of a union mentality. And that is, we need to be together, and we need to enforce our own collective rate in the way we do business on these people. And if you don't, then you're against us, kind of thing. I know that's kind of a generalization, but that's kind of the way it is.
And that's interesting, because I haven't, obviously I've only been in voiceover for a year, but my dad and I have talked about that, and I've only known this side of, our side of voiceover. So I've never, getting an agent, stuff like that. I don't even know what that all entails, but I don't really want to get into it, but I can understand the difference in price and people being like, hey, you're, pushing me out of business here or something like that. So.
Yeah, imagine you want to play baseball professionally, and the only way to play is it's major league. That's the only league that's available, and you either play that or you don't play it. You don't make money any other way. And then somebody comes along and says, "Oh, okay, well now we're going to have a league, like a minor league. You're not going to get paid as much, but you still get to play. Plus, you get to develop yourself for an opportunity to make it." Major League Baseball could say, "Well, these guys they're taking money out of our pockets because now people are going to go see the minor league teams and not spend their money on Major League Baseball." Well, it's a bad argument to begin with, because as we all know, there's lots of money, lots of fans, plenty to go around. Minor League Baseball has not hurt Major League Baseball. They've actually used it to their advantage. I mean, it's a system that's been built around Major League Baseball. So I just think the thinking needs to change. And right now it's slow. I say slow. It's not changing at all as far as I can see, but someday, they either will or they won't be in business anymore.
Well, that's fine for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So you're saying that, are you still getting some heat sometimes from people, like when you do your YouTube stuff, or, hey, you're cheating the system. Hey, you're making everything a lot lower. Hey, you're whatever. You're not playing as part of the team. You're not playing fair, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I get snarky remarks. What's interesting, they're not as frequent as they used to be, because fortunately seems to be a sea of people who understand and appreciate what I'm trying to say. And the people who now, like in social media, I've noticed if they make a remark, they quickly get overwhelmed by these people who basically tell them to shut up. I mean, usually it's a nicer words than that. But the last thing I saw was it was on LinkedIn not long ago. There were a couple of people, I know who they are. They're pretty high profile in voiceover. And I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but their remark was really negative and explain and trying to say that what I was doing is being harmful. And then all of a sudden they were just avalanche of positive comments about the post that I had made. Well, and I thought long and hard about a response, because I don't believe in, I don't want to add oxygen to a fight. I have no interest in that. But sometimes I think it's helpful for me to come back and explain and say, well, here's where I'm coming from. So I went back to explain my position, and they had already withdrawn their posts. They had deleted their posts from the. So I think people are a little. They understand they can't get. Apparently, you can't get by with that without having a lot of people, retaliate.
Yeah.
In a nice way.
That's a testament to you, Bill, for you have all those people coming to your, to your aid. And that's, that doesn't just happen with anybody. So,
well, I mean, it makes me feel good when they do that. Not that I need to be defended, but I'm glad that they can see and appreciate what's being said, because the reason I share it is because I want you to be able to use it. I mean, what point is it if nobody uses the information? And like you said, Todd, hey, and if nobody does, I mean, that's just more for us. But there's plenty out there. That's the thing. There's plenty out there. So it doesn't hurt us to share that information.
Well, that was our interview with Bill DeWeese.
That was great.
And
looking forward to next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Got so much
The second part is something we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
So we'll obviously have some links that you can go to, that if you are looking to use his services at Bill DeWeese Media or his blueprint or anything like that, it'll be easily accessible for you guys, and you can find out what you need from him. So that was Bill this week, and after this break, we will have our weeks in review. So stick around.
Hey, how you doing? This is Todd, and that's Hudson, and we're so grateful that you are joining us for the original Father-Son Voiceover podcast. Before we get back to the podcast, I just wanted to take a moment to talk to you about another company, a company that I helped start along with Hudson and my 5 other adult sons. It's called VO Marketing Pro, or VOMP. And what VO Marketing Pro does is really, it's a direct email marketing assistant for you, a voiceover talent. So if you want to check it out, you can check out the links below, and there's lots of information about VOMP or VO Marketing Pro there. We'll get back to more of the original Father-Son Voiceover podcast right after this.
All right, and we are back with the original Father-Son Voiceover podcast. And this segment, we're going to go over our weeks in review, your week in review, my week in review, and then John from VO Marketing Pro is here to give the VOMP update. So I'll let him come up here and share my microphone, because we don't have another microphone at this point.
That's where we're at. And John is my oldest son, and he's your oldest brother.
He sure is.
There's 2 in between. This is big John right here.
Big bad John. Yep.
Saddle up there to the microphone,
All
John.
right.
Slide
Nice.
those headphones on, and then talk. Enjoy your deep voice.
All right. Sounds good. Okay.
Yeah. So give us an update on VOMP this week.
Okay. So we had 45 warm responses.
It's nice. Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And 18 auditions, and still waiting to hear back on a lot of those.
Just a little injecting something here. I had a bunch of auditions this week. I think I had 3 or 4, and I think Hudson wants to talk about 3 or 4 too. I don't know if they're included in that, but it just seems like it was an audition week. 45 auditions. That's a lot of auditions.
Sure is.
So what else we got?
Anything? And then just 2 jobs this week so far. Like I said, we're waiting on the auditions back, but Hudson and Mike Stout got a job. So
great. Good. And I know I was going to say in my update, I have a couple, like I said, a few auditions that are out there. And I know that I had 2 auditions that I didn't get. Mm-hmm. One they went for a female voice, and the other they just found another voice. That's part of the gig is you just don't get everything. You got to get used to rejection. Just quickly, you do VOMP every day. I've been giving the update, and I'm involved in it quite a bit. I mean, we talk a lot about it. But what maybe one little thing that you're seeing as far as what you want people to think about just today?
Well, yeah, a lot goes back to those videos that we do, specifically the long haul mentality, and lots of emails. We do have anomalies out there, good anomalies where people are getting jobs that have just started with us, but it's those that have stuck with us for 6 months and beyond. And they're seeing some traction, and that's great to see. And again, we really suggest doing, emails on your own, doing the hybrid.
Yeah, hybrid. Yeah.
And so while, long long haul is what we want, and we want you to stay with us, it's do it on your own, and you'll see that the results that way too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
over time, if you keep on doing it, you're going to see it, and don't get discouraged at all by people. You're going to see numbers that come up from people that have been with us for a while, and they're getting stuff, and that isn't meant as a discouragement. It's
Right.
meant as an encouragement
Right.
that just stick
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
and stick with it on your own too, and do
Yeah.
it you're on your own, and
Yeah.
things will come. Good things will come.
Our guest, Bill DeWeese, always talks about it, and it's anything with direct marketing, is that big funnel where you have to put a lot in, and you got to wait, and a few things drop out, and you just have to keep cultivating those. And that's what you're saying. People that have been with us 6 months, a year, they're starting to see that come to fruition, where just don't get discouraged if you're not getting quite the results you want. Pour more into the top on your own. Do some more targeted. If you like e-learning, if you like animation, if you like character stuff, just go out there and Google that and get busy on it.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Welcome to the, the original Father-Son Voiceover podcast.
Great to be a part of it.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you every single week.
Sounds good.
Maybe more of your brothers too.
Sounds good.
We got Demond on camera today, and we've got Drew and Joe and Mom. We're still waiting for Mom. We talked about having a voiceover penalty box, and she hasn't started vacuuming or yelling upstairs, what's going on, nothing like that. So the penalty box will be inviting somebody to come up here and have to talk with us.
And we almost had to have the internet guy come up.
Yeah, right.
We were going to.
That's right. We talked about it at the beginning. By the way, we have links below for our website, for VO Marketing Pro website, their Facebook and YouTube channel. So that's okay. So do you want me to share my numbers now?
Yeah, if you would, that'd be
All
great.
right. I already talked about the fact that I had quite a few warm replies, and it seemed to be an auditioning week this week. I didn't get any new clients, so I didn't win any auditions. So that was a little bit of a quote downer, but that's fine. I had a very busy week as it was. I think this was my highest week so far. Platforms were $3,809.80. My direct email marketing clients, $4,208.02 for a total. I got over the $8,000 mark this week. $8,017.82. $8,017.82. And I know this is kind of an interesting thing. I remember people talking about when you, like 10% of the people or whatever, 10% of the people at a company do 90% of the work, and 90% of the people kind of ride on their coattails. It's like a football game. There's 80,000 people in the stands who desperately need exercise, and then there's 22 men on the field who desperately need to lay down and rest, get some recuperation. And that's a little bit how it is. I mean, my week is busy. I'm tired. I remember Bill DeWeese, our guest, would say 5-6 years ago when I was making $50,000, $60,000 and he was multiple six figures, he'd say, "Oh, I love voiceover work, but I can't wait till, the weekend." And that's, how I feel sometimes, where when I was in your position, it was like, no, I don't want the week to end. I want to maybe have a chance at another job. So
And I'm always saying, I'm looking forward to getting to that point where I'm so busy that I would enjoy a break.
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm not to that point right now. So
right.
that's fine.
My point, I guess, is that I've been there, and I'm the one that now needs the rest, and you're the one that needs, to be busy. And so
Would like more to be
Yeah,
busy
exactly.
and would like to be a little
Yeah.
bit kind of running
Yeah.
like a chicken with my head cut
Sure.
off.
Yep. That
So-
makes sense. So
Yeah.
tell us about your week.
Yeah, so I had 13 warm replies this week,
Wow,
so that was
good. It's great.
that was nice. I had 3 auditions, and then I had 1 job that I booked. I didn't do an audition for that job. A guy got a hold of me and said that he does lots of political ads and stuff like that. So he said, I might have something for you. Well, lo and behold, he had one the next day. So that was really nice. It wasn't very high paying, but it was a job. So that was nice to get that out of there. Platforms, I made $152 on. So I had 1 job on Fiverr. And then I also have continuing work on Upwork, which is something I've been trying out lately. And shout out to Mike Praviti from our VO Marketing Pro group. He put me in touch with this person on this new client on Upwork. And so I'm doing work through them.
Well, how nice.
Yeah, it's very nice
So
of
it's
them.
not just me giving referrals to you and to other people. Other people are giving referrals. So that's really nice. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate that. And then let's see here. Other VO work. So like stuff I do for VOMP and editing for you. I made $180 on that. That's something different, but I figure that's part of the voiceover
Yeah, exactly.
things that I do. So yeah, and then I actually have, along with Upwork, I have one other interview that I was just asked to do with somebody on there. They do it a little bit different if you're not familiar with Upwork. You have to go out and search for the jobs, and then they interview you to see if you're the right one. So Fiverr, they look for you. Upwork, you look for them. So it's a little bit different, trying to figure that out for both of us.
Yeah.
So in total, I did $362 this week.
Great.
Even.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
good. Well, those warm replies are good because they're telling you something. They're saying, I know people can lie and they can just want to, push you off. But a lot of times they're, hey, you got something, we like it, like your voice, should build some confidence in you that 13 different video production companies or ad agencies or voice rosters said, we like what we hear, or give us your rates, or we'll keep you in mind. That'll keep you going. I know booking jobs are what we want. And it's what we want for VOMP too. But you get those warm replies, you get those auditions. Those are nice too.
Well, and I guess I had one other thing to talk about that is you talked about your auditions, and I had 3 this week.
Yeah.
And I had a couple last week, maybe 1 or 2. And from some of those warm replies I've had, people say, "Oh, I like your voice. We've got some work. What would you charge for this?" And I let them know and stuff like that. And then there's just nothing. It's just crickets.
Yeah.
And you kind of sit there and you're like, "Oh no, did they forget about me? What's going on? Maybe they picked somebody else." And this need to know, it kind of infests you, and you're just like, I need to know. And going back to what we talked about in the first segment was not being needy.
Yes.
Stuff like that in another way, not being needy, trying to get help, but not being needy in being a voiceover actor who says, hey, you email right back and you say, did you forget about me? Not basically saying that, but that's what you're doing. And then they're kind of like, oh, what do we're just trying to figure out who we want, stuff like that.
Right.
So maybe what do you do when you have, seems like for me, that was a better week of replies and auditions, but then you're not hearing back anything. What do you do? Because I can right away, and I'm sure other people can, they can start to think about flailing and think about,
Yeah, and when you're not busy, when you're busy like me, you do the auditions and you kind of forget about them. I mean, you'd like to get the jobs and stuff like that, but you have a tendency to forget about them.
You don't put as much weight on them.
No, and I don't get back with people. But I'll tell you, when I, 7, 9, 10 years ago, it was like, ooh, that's been 2 days. I'd like to check in. I would just leave it alone, and I would push my energy doing something else. That is marketing, or doing, something else that will build your business. And just when you do an audition, just go ahead and say, unless they say, hey, we should have word by next week, feel free to check in, or different things like that. Well, that's different. But I just think it's a better look to not do that. It gives them the confidence that you're not needy of them, and you have time then, instead of obsessing over that and, spending your time worrying about getting back with that person and how should I and when should I, you just do the audition, let her go, and then just move on to your next project or marketing.
Is there maybe something to be said about that, is not being, like if you're showing them that you have too much time, or like that you're a new person, they might say, oh, this person's needy for a job. And so maybe we'll go with somebody else who's not. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where
I think people are smarter sometimes, and they can sense some neediness or some desperation. That's the advice that I had to give myself early on, and that's the advice that I give to you and everybody else. You can do what you want to do, but that's what I encourage you to do, is move on. Go to the next audition, go to your next project, get marketing, do something for your business. That's not kind of going backwards. If you did your best job on that audition, let her go. If they like you, they'll find you.
Sure.
They'll get back with you.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
Most likely they wouldn't have said that they liked you if they didn't.
Correct. And they'll find you. Trust me, they'll find you, even if they lost your email or whatever. If they like you, they'll get after you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for taking the time to listen to us and watch us. We hope this was helpful. If there is anything that you want, like links to VO Marketing Pro, Bill DeWeese Media, the original Father-Son Voiceover podcast, we will link those in the description below so that they're easily accessible and you can get to them.
Yeah.
So
feedback to us, give us a thumbs up, whatever. We'd like to hear from you, what you're thinking about this. If you'd like to hear more of this or that, I know this is our first one, so we'll just have to see what happens. But I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So
good to do this with you.
We will sign off with that. So take care.